Are you going to slate it?
I'm Bill Panzer.
I'm Peter Davis.
I'm Robert Ferretti, one of the editors.
I'm Dan Gross, the executive from Dimension Films.
Tough job, especially on this show.
We had our hands full.
Considering we were in Romania, thank you, Dan. It's a wonderful choice of Miramax to put us there.
Can you tell us a little bit why you shot it in Romania?
Largely, we knew we had to build a lot of sets, and we wanted to get as much money on the screen as we could, and there are tremendous economies of scale in Eastern Europe. People still work for a lot less than they do in the United States, and we were able to shoot a lot more days and get a lot more out of our budget by going that way.
It was an interesting choice. I must say that Bill and myself were not terribly supportive of that choice, but at the end of the day, we did get very good value for the production dollars that were spent.
And once we found that one Italian restaurant, Cafe Olé, I mean, then we were covered.
There are good meals in Romania.
No, there is one restaurant that serves good meals in Romania. Let's not overstate the case.
Right.
Well, it also forced us to find some really interesting locations that I don't think we would have found any other way.
There's no question the locations in Romania were quite extraordinary.
Is there a downside to shooting there?
It's not the easiest place to make a movie. The crews have not been doing this their whole lives like you find in Los Angeles, but they made up for it in enthusiasm.
As our production designer said, most places in the world, when you want to build a set, somebody puts up flats. In Romania, somebody goes to the forest and cuts down a tree.
I think also the difficulties that you had was with a mixed crew, that you had a very high level of technicians from England, particularly the camera crew, design crew, special effects, and you brought them into Romania, and they had an interface with a floor crew from Romania that was not particularly skilled and not up to the level of the crew that was brought in from England. And that mix was difficult at times. Wouldn't you say that was a problem?
I think it started to gel as we got further and further into the picture, but absolutely, there was a big learning curve on everybody's part.
At the airport, as we were all leaving, is when it really came together, I thought.
The luggage showed up.
But here we are in New York. These are stock shots of New York for titles. Again, these are stock shots, still New York stock checks. Now right here, this
shot drives me crazy. It's Romania, but they couldn't paint within the lines. And you'll notice on that 24th Street sign, it's not quite right.
I think the object here, by showing Christoph and Adrian right at the head, was to establish two guys, see them full screen, knowing that this is a movie about brothers.
And creating, I think the illusion of us being in New York is pretty well done. When you were there, I mean, you saw the whole street in Romania. Even though you look through the camera, when you're here, you realize that the camera is just seeing this little piece, and it's hard to put that out of your mind when you're actually present. And I thought this all came off pretty nicely.
The only thing that gives it away is no rational New Yorker would put ketchup on their hot dog. And I think that's a personal thing with the actor, really, rather than...
Christoph's look here was to be reminiscent of his look from Highlander 1 when he came out of the underground garage in the Porsche.
You can tell me all about it tonight.
It's a good look for him.
At the bar. You'll buy in.
These are tough days. And getting this stuff together was pretty amazing.
What time of the year were you shooting?
When did we begin? About the beginning of October, I guess?
Yeah.
And we had to be out by Christmas, which
about 6
6
weeks late.
We were.
So cold weather?
It was the warmest fall in recorded history in Romania, so we got awfully lucky with the weather.
But we were very concerned about getting out by Christmas because the concept of going back to Romania after the holidays, after hiatus, was so frightening from a weather point of view. We knew what we'd be looking at.
And worth mentioning here, we really made an effort to bring back some of the original cast members from the first film, and we felt that was really important to not compromise when we could get the original characters.
So finding Sheila Gish available and excited to reprise her role of Rachel in the first movie was absolutely fantastic. There is a shot there that is, that is Romania, the exterior of the loft and antique shop that Rachel Eldenstein manages or owns with Connor. And the shot was originally intended to be a very high crane shot showing the huge background of New York City and coming down and revealing that selling the fact that we were in New York City. And it was one of those things that everybody talks about on the special effects sequence, that you just start to run out of time to pull some of these things off.
And is the interior a set?
This is all a set. We really made an effort to match the first film as best we could.
You did a good job.
This is actually the inside of a not even half-finished, half-mile square communist block building that the Ceausescu regime built, and we took it over as our set. And we're pretty happy with the results.
She was delighted to be back in this movie.
She was happy to be back. Right, absolutely. But she had a good time in the first movie, and now it was 15 years later. And it was, there were, the backgrounds of the set are translights.
Where was the first one shot?
The first New York exterior was in New York, but the interiors were in London.
So you used this to match the original New York.
Right, which is on Green Street in Manhattan.
But most of the shooting in the original one was in London and in Scotland.
And when I see this scene,
wasn't that car supposed to go up in the air, Dan?
The car was supposed to go up in the air.
Oh, those are my feet that just went by there.
Yes, you'll notice throughout the movie, anytime you see somebody's heels, that is something we put back in later so people could tie them into our bad guy.
That was shot in the Valley here in Los Angeles.
Now let's talk about this location. This was a abandoned salt mine about 200 yards below ground in Romania with one small elevator that you could fit 1 or 2 people into. The whole crew had to be brought down into the elevator. And literally it was a situation where you almost had a canary in a cage to see if the bird passed out. We knew we had to get out of that salt mine.
It was an incredible location. It was very unusual.
Almost worth the trip.
And one of the examples of the strength of the locations in Romania.
And these shots?
Since we're being honest, these we bought from a group in Scotland.
These are stock shots from Scotland.
But it is Scotland.
Absolutely.
And I think the sense was to create...
Now we're back in Romania.
To create as much a sense of the feeling of Scotland that brings us back to the romanticism from the original Highlander movie.
Now here's another Heather's character, again, the original actress from the first film.
Beatty Edney.
And we had a debate of what was she going to look like 15 years later, and we had her agent fax us a picture into Romania, and she looked terrific, and we knew we had to have her.
Yeah. It was nice. It was kind of a little bit of a Highlander class reunion, which was terrific fun.
Connor, please. You're not going back to Glenfinnan.
I have no choice.
Connor, please.
This is all in Romania, kind of outside of Bucharest.
I'm afraid.
I love you, Heather.
Are any of these the original costumes?
None of it was the original costumes.
No, we had some of the... No. Some of his costumes are the original costumes that he wore. Part of the costume is the original stuff that they still had at, I guess it was Berman's or Angel's in London.
This next section is an interesting mix of where the footage came from. And we'll talk as we go through. This was actually shot by helicopter in Scotland of a stuntman on a horse.
And there are helicopter blades in there, which you will see and be explained in the visual effects sequence in the supplementary.
Actually, Dan, it's not a stunt man, it's a stunt woman.
It was a stunt woman. So there, that's ours. You'll notice the greatest sunset a computer can paint.
And this was done after principal photography.
And here's a shot from the first movie, a very rare thing in this film. There are 3 of them. See if you can find the other 2.
And actually that shot had a person walking through it left to right, which we had to remove. and it was the day shot. We had to make it night.
One of the things when you're shooting in cold weather and you're operating on a set that was built outdoors, you really kind of capture the feeling of what it was like to be in Scotland in the winter 400 years ago. When
So this wasn't a sound stage, this was an outdoor set?
The love scene in the film is the only scene, I believe, in the entire film shot on a soundstage. This was a set in a backlot of a studio.
it was right next to where the village was actually constructed.
I've no need of them.
And the village is to duplicate the village from the original Highlander, and I think they did a very, very good job of doing that. And you'll see it coming up in the wide shots.
Conrad, what is it?
I'm not sure. It happened once before.
See, that's a piece of the original costume.
His sash? Or?
Yeah, I mean that's how the original kilts
One of
were
our
worn. They were kind
concerns
of
here,
wrapped.
Jacob is in heavy beard here, and we had some concerns that we'd made him too hard to recognize as our modern Jacob. So we'll let you guys tell us if we did it right or not.
I think that was a deep concern as to the confusion between the character in period and the character in contemporary times, and to connect them.
All our shoe shots were used to tie the bad guy together.
So the confusion would be eliminated or at least significantly lessened.
This was outside of the studio, the back lot in Romania. All this was built. It's about, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour from Bucharest, and very close to the lake where Vlad the Impaler is buried, the original Count Dracula,
Count Dracula, wow.
whose spirit infuses our every movement.
If your God should persecute me into the next world.
And again, they did a good job with the construction of this village.
Now, I assume most of the extras are all from Romania?
The extras are all Romanian. The mother up on the cross was from England. We showed up at the village to start shooting, and the special effects team realized that we had built the village out of incredibly flammable styrofoam. And there was some concern what would happen when it went up in flames, but ultimately it worked out okay. This I call our homage to the opening of Elizabeth.
Doug Milson, the cinematographer who was the camera operator on Highlander 1, and then took a cut and pay and went to work for Stanley Kubrick. But he did an absolutely amazing job in this and other scenes.
And I think he did it particularly under the circumstances that he had to work with in Romania, that he was able to deliver such a good-looking piece here. Because he didn't necessarily have all the toys that he might have wanted.
Quite a few, though.
That's
We
not
gave him a
directed.
couple.
That's not directed at you, Dan.
Now, how close do those actors get to that fire?
Pretty close. I mean, the fire is controlled, but there's controlled fire in Hollywood, and then there's controlled fire in Romania.
And it was right about now we were waiting to see what would happen when the styrofoam went up.
How many days
What do
on
we
the
shoot?
on the schedule?
About
was this
4
done?
days, I think, we did exteriors of the village here. Another day to do the interior with the mother.
Long, cold nights.
To be
Night shooting in Romania is not what one would call the greatest of fun.
We expected snow on the ground by this point and got lucky that there wasn't.
Have good craft services.
I don't think yes would be an appropriate answer to that question. They had lovely gruel there.
Food was an issue throughout, particularly for the English guys.
Yeah.
They really. I used to their bangers and mash.
I call that the artichoke shot. I'm not sure why our bad guy suddenly looks like an artichoke, because he was actually quite a thin man, but for some reason he puffed up for this shot. And coming up, one of my favorite shots, the walking away with mother in arms from the burning village shot, which I think is an especially good one.
So you build a whole set and then
Burn it
Burn it
down.
down.
That's the way it is
That's
in Hollywood.
movies.
Or Romania. Even in Romania.
It beat tearing it down.
My endless days are filled with memories.
One of the things that we were always concerned about was making sure that the
Mother by Jacob.
continuity and the changes in time periods was as clear as it needed to be for people who were unfamiliar with Highlander and the legend and how the structure of an average Highlander story works.
Why, you people are extremely difficult to find.
We like it that way.
Now we're seeing the posse for the first time, and the people that are composed in this group are quite interesting. Dan, maybe you can give us a sense of how this group came together and who they consist of.
Well, we wanted a interesting mix of young guys. We had a bit of a martial arts spin to the film, so we wanted people that had some martial arts background. You'll notice a little bit of a Clockwork Orange feel to their wardrobe design. And probably the most important find that came out of this was the guy on the bike here. His name is Donnie Yen. He was our martial arts expert. Donnie came out of a pretty long career doing Hong Kong action films. And we actually found him by calling 3 or 4 of the publishers of the big Hong Kong karate magazines and asked, who's the next big guy we ought to know about? And every one of them said Donnie. And this was his first Western film.
Quite spectacular moves.
He was both the star of these scenes and the martial arts choreographer, and we really wanted to bring a Hong Kong feel to certain parts of the movies. This scene here where he kicks the helmet he made up himself. Unlike Jackie Chan, who sort of has a comedic spin to what he does, Donnie's back to the traditional Bruce Lee, but swears he's faster. Well, I've never met a guy who didn't.
Anybody's faster than Bruce Lee now.
I think here where you see his eyes roll back in his head was a little touch I always liked.
Right, which is we reversed.
Yeah, later on.
Later on, we reversed the film that his eyes open. This is not holy ground. These monks were guards for the sanctuary, and they were dressed as monks in order to disguise the fact that the sanctuary was a guarded place.
But it definitely was not holy ground.
And there's the moment with the don't be long, you realize these guys are
That's
immortal.
the same shot as you saw before, only the shot was reversed. It had
Yeah.
this and flopped, so it's going in a different direction.
Now, where the outside was an old monastery in Romania, now we're back to our abandoned salt mine. And this whole scene will play out in the salt mine. It was the size of 2-3 football fields. It was really enormous.
Was it a working salt mine?
It was a working salt mine, and it really was 600 feet high.
Oh.
And the only ability to go in and out of it was this tiny elevator that Dan described earlier. It was quite frightening, to be truthful.
From an art direction standpoint, we were going here for sort of a modern Gothic, which I think Jonathan Carlson, our designer, did a pretty good job of pulling off.
Just to get back to the salt mine, did you have to work like at night because they were working days, or how did that work? Were they shut it down for a while, or
We took it over, and there wasn't any issue of having to work nights.
Except that the only Mexican restaurant in Bucharest did not have salt for margaritas for 4 days.
This was the only time we moved outside of Bucharest. This was a good couple hours.
Quite a
outside.
drive.
And if I remember, Dan, there was quite a dispute as to whether we should go that far, whether the Merrimack's bucks would stretch that far.
Fans should thank the producers for holding to their guns on this. The cheapskate studio wanted to cut it.
You guys are always the fall guys anyhow.
and how about this location?
This scene was actually shot in London, and I wasn't part of the scout, but they were literally walking by the spot looking for a place where they could do a kata scene, and came upon an actual Tibetan garden.
And this type of scene was very important to Adrian. It's important to his lifestyle, it was important to his view of the role, and he took great care in how he prepared these type of scenes.
Because every martial arts moment that he has is not random. It is a part of a personal philosophy, and it is an idea of where Duncan MacLeod would be at this time in his life and what he would be practicing.
This, of course, is London, and now we're back in Romania.
So you had a mix of Romanian locations, London locations, Luxembourg, New York, a typical Highlander movie.
We were all
And
over the
Scotland.
place.
And Scott.
Is that phone ring a London phone ring?
That is now.
Oh, okay.
It is now
I
a
was
London
curious
phone ring.
if-
It
It
was
started
earlier
as a
French
Paris
phone.
phone ring, and
It was a
became
French
London.
phone ring at one point.
Whatever you fear about Connor MacLeod,
I just love the way this looks in the, after you've had a chance to go through in DVD and really do the color timing in a way that it's almost impossible to do.
Did Doug Milsom get a chance to go
Absolutely.
over
Doug
this?
Milsom was buried in a dark, humming room for days and days, tweaking his vision of this thing, which is wonderful.
Now, Bill Panzer found this location. We wanted something that looked French. We were in Romania, and Bill was out taking a walk.
And you can see the outside of it. It's a museum of, it's a place for higher economic study. And we just kind of took a look, and I grabbed the driver and said, "What's on the other side?" And he said, "Well, it's some building that could look like it's in England."
And
so there it was.
And this is the first time we're seeing mythos, and it was, for us, for Bill and myself, very important to have the characters of mythos and Joe Dawson in this
Is
film.
he from the series or from the other?
He's from the series, and he's a very important character in the series, just as Joe Dawson is, and their involvement in this feature we thought would add a great deal to it, to the integration of the TV legend with the overall feature legend and the characters, and to make them one.
And Miramax supported us completely in this, Dan.
I've never seen you like that.
I'm not going near that one.
Good. Come on, Dan. Go near it, please.
All that matters is that there they are. They're in the movie.
And they were delighted to be there, and we feel they really added to the project.
Some of them come to cherish life so much that to step on a single insect or harm a blade of grass.
I always felt the analogy he's saying now about the monks and the blades of grass was especially fitting for the whole concept of the Watchers and the Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Well, Joel Soisson is not a bad screenwriter. I mean, some of these things actually made sense.
And he was the only writer on this, wasn't he, Bill?
Happens to the best of my recollection, Counselor.
it's called The Sanctuary.
The theatrical version of the film had a line about it being on holy ground, which, as you'll see in the supplemental materials, never existed. And every once in a while, sometimes people get an urge to clarify something that doesn't need any clarification. So we're glad to have the opportunity in the DVD to straighten that out.
Here's one of our New York City shots.
So this was actually shot in New York.
We shot a variety of scenes without actors.
But now that's New York.
This is New York.
The interior is Romania.
Absolutely.
Movie magic at its best.
In our featurette, you'll see how they did that.
Now here we are deep in the woods in Romania, and it was raining on and off, and we got lucky that we made it through this day. Christoph was having a bad hair day, you can all see.
Again, this is a scene to show the brotherhood between our two leads, and it was
Bob Weinstein had requested a Butch and Sundance moment, so this was our Highlander version of Butch and Sundance.
Combined with our
pro wrestler right there.
Pro wrestler.
How'd you get him, Dan?
Well, we wanted a wrestler in the film. I was told we had a wrestler, and we all expected a 300-pound guy to step off the plane, and suddenly we had good-looking, 6'4", rock star-looking wrestler, who actually was a pretty good actor and had a lot of fun with this. We had him for 2 days.
There you go.
His scoundrel sidekick we brought in from England. The man driving the coach is actually the art director of the film.
They had a good time with this scene.
Yeah, this was fun. This was definitely a Butch and Sundance type scene.
Well, lighthearted.
Anytime you saw the two of them together, it was a lot of fun.
And it doesn't in any way look like this. I mean, this is Doug, the way he shot and corrected the color, what we call color timing of this scene, gave it a fantastic, gives it that period feeling. It's extremely saturated and extremely warm, and it's a very different look from
all through the scene. We
present.
had pipes that would emit smoke interlaced all across the scene, so we were constantly pumping in large amounts of smoke. You can see it more on some shots
most
than
of the
others.
shots, yeah.
There you see the famous movie rock.
Which you'll see a funny little thing in the featurette.
Exactly. But he is
Also, this
acting.
is the first time we see the character,
The love interest.
the love interest, yeah.
Kate Faith, right. Back in New York, a transition that was designed, because the transitions in Highlander have been a special part of them ever since
Anybody
the
notice
first
the
movie.
numbers on the cab are not the same?
Yeah, he got
as
it.
the
I
two
can't remember the
shots.
number of the cab.
I took that out as a trivia question.
Well, we bet nobody noticed, but some people suggested it was a problem.
Well, you're gonna have to go in playback and see when he gets riding in the car over the bridge, what the number on the cab is and how it varies when he gets out of the cab.
Now this is this is the blown up loft again, back in our huge
Again, is this a
monolithic
set?
building.
Where is this? London?
This is
Romania?
all still in Romania. It was an empty cement building, so everything you see we built.
Oh, so this is a practical building.
It is a practical building.
But the set is built within.
Within, so
The
all
building.
the twisted stairway, that's all.
Right.
That's
All these
by
walls, the walls
art
are all
department.
set walls. They're not practical walls.
So it's a building within a building.
There you go.
And we're about to come up on a sequence that took a little longer to shoot than we thought it would. Would you say,
Our
Dan?
first grand fight scene,
Fight
which
scenes
went
are-
on
they're
for
tough.
days
They're
and
tough to do.
days.
They're tough to stage. They're tough when you have multiple people.
This is another set that was directly made to match a set from the first movie, the circular
and,
room.
And they did a very good job with this.
Did you have any of these kind of sets in the series at all?
We had a couple moments when there were sort of treasure room kind of places for that, but never on the scale that this was or the first one was.
A line was added here where he's hearing sound effects from World War I that I thought our editing team supplied that really helped out that shot there. Obviously, transitions are a major importance in the Highlander films.
And I think in this film we did different kinds of transitions, not exactly the ones we had done before. This one was accomplished
This is
by a
beautiful.
cut.
What was this?
So when I
in
see
sound.
this scene, this was it was in a government building in downtown Romania. And when we first saw this building, we had spent a very painful week driving every inch of the country of Romania and not really finding what we were looking for. And the morning of the solar eclipse, we were killing time before the eclipse, and they took us into this area, and we were just amazed with the huge vaulted ceilings and the gilded walls. And
So again,
it was
this
really
is a working
gorgeous.
building?
This is a working building. I think it's truly a couple hundred years old, but we did very little set design to it. The little man in the back with the feather is actually our makeup man, Daniel Parker. Who insisted we use him in the scene because he had the right mustache for it.
He did well.
And at that point, I'm very, very dead. Come on.
Not just dead, Duncan.
Empty.
Did they get much chance to rehearse sword fighting prior to starting of filming?
Every free minute we had, they were rehearsing that. I wouldn't say it was weeks on end, but it was quite a bit of rehearsal
Before
time.
shooting and everything?
Yeah,
Before shooting, during shooting.
In Los
and
Angeles,
evenings.
they did a fair bit. They had a decent amount of preparation time.
Here we wanted to go over some of the rules of the quickenings for anyone out there that didn't know them to begin with. Here we are actually walking in. We didn't finish shooting and we were thrown out of the building, so we actually had to find a different room.
This is a different room?
This is a completely different room.
Never know.
This is what I call the Adrian lets down his hair fight.
Made him feel good. It was a throwback to when he was a more violent, less sophisticated guy, and he felt comfortable with it.
I think we sell the fact that it's two different places pretty well. You wouldn't never notice it.
Yeah.
It's not always about strength, Duncan. Attack me.
And this is what started as what he called the unstoppable move, and is obviously a big plot point of the film.
It's about manipulation.
Who designed this move, Dan?
I think it was a little bit of Adrian and a little bit of F. Braun, who was our sword master, working together. So we really wanted something credible as an unstoppable move, but something they could really do.
Is it a real move? Or a movie move?
I think a little bit of both.
It's a real move now. This was co-designed by Adrian and F. And F had been with us on the series for 5 years.
And you all get to meet him in the featurette.
Great.
And you can see the reflection on the sword there. Real quick, you had to look real quick. You may have to wind it back and put a freeze frame there.
But that was, something you could add in DVD that we didn't have time to do in the movie.
Who are you?
A friend,
Enter.
lover, or wife?
This is Lisa B.
Now she's Faith here. She was Kate back in the Highwayman scene. How'd you find Lisa B? And
Lisa was a British pop singer. Something about her was really intriguing to us. She's especially tall, so she was fit well with Adrian, who's a pretty big guy.
And she has great spirit.
And she had a quality about her that made you believe that she was a hipster, somebody cool in the modern times, and in the past she was a seamstress. She fit right in both the present and the past, and that's always a critical thing with the Highlander characters.
This is our big loft fight. It was one of the first things we shot.
And shot.
And shot.
What was the original schedule of this particular scene, Dan?
I believe it was
4 days?
3 or 4 days originally, and we wanted it to be spectacular, and second unit shot pieces of this for the entire schedule of the movie, it felt like.
And first unit was there for
a good 6 days, I believe.
6.
Somebody order a club sandwich.
these scenes are tough to shoot.
tough scene to cut, wasn't it, Bob?
If you have all the pieces there, it's just a matter of time to get them
the right balance.
Get the right balance and stuff. And it's always good to have help from, the people, especially like Adrian, who was very specific and knows the martial art moves and if this is a right move or a wrong move. something I might not notice, but martial arts fans would pick up in a second. So having that second opinion is very important.
Hey! Nice bat.
Now, who was the prime fight choreographer for this particular scene?
Well, it was a bit of a group effort. Adrian had a lot of input into it. Donnie Yen had a lot of input into it. Vernon Riata, who plays the Manny, the Asian guy in this group, is Adrian's martial arts trainer. This, of course, is Donnie Yen. And this is the moment where they all sit back and let Donnie take over.
Now, the other actors, do they all have martial art experience? Is that how they were hired, or
they
just 'cause
all
of their
had
look,
some
or
martial
what?
arts experience.
They all said they did.
They all said they did. Oris, who had the blades in his hands, was quite an experienced martial artist.
But this now becomes a mano-mano between Danny and
Donnie and Adrian, absolutely. And again, you see some really terrific, almost ballet-like moves on Donnie's part.
They were both very good. The nice thing about working with Adrian is that Adrian is just very good. I mean, it's clear that this is Adrian. I mean, there's not.
I know, that's the
double.
best part about fight scenes, is when you actually see
no stunt
the
doubles for
actors,
anybody.
no stunt doubles. It's great.
No, these guys were all.
And the fans
all held
appreciate
their
that.
own. They all held their own. I think they actually, Donnie and Adrian had some private conversations and actually kind of understood this stuff on a slightly different level than we watch it, we appreciate it, but it's part of their lives and they can talk about it in a different way.
Now, this is real time, and Bob, you can correct me, but I don't believe we sped up
Nothing
anything.
was sped up here. Slow down, that was a slow-mo shot.
And again, this is the set within a building, so this lighting has all been changed to now make this a different time
Here's
of
the
day. Time's
foot
passed.
inserts again.
Shot in a warehouse in
Van
San
Nuys,
Fernando Valley.
When it comes to discipline, the first 100 years are the
Now, of interest here, Carlos, the guy shooting the gun, who we call sort of our celebrity first quickening, is a guy named Damon Dash, who is president of Rockefeller Records, one of the big rap labels, and works directly with Jay-Z, one of the big rappers on that label.
Yeah, well.
He said, "I'm not good at martial arts, just give me a gun." And
That's right.
we did just that.
Because the only way to win your freedom is to kill me.
You're crazy.
Am I?
This is Bruce Payne, he's a great villain. How did he come about?
A series of events. He had been the villain in Passenger 57, and we all thought he'd made a great villain. Just a quick note, the guy with the beard jumping out of the van there is Nick Alder, our special effects guy, who wanted his cameo.
Nobody works on Highlander and only does one job.
The villains in Highlander have always been very strong villains, and Bruce certainly fit that role. On Passenger 57, he was fabulous as a villain, and we were very anxious to have him join us, and delighted that he did.
And a very funny man.
Very.
He looks evil, he looks menacing, but he's like cracking jokes a minute, nonstop.
So this is blowing up the set in Romania. Everything you're seeing here was all constructed.
Practical explosions. I remember Nick Alder, his famous line was, "Oh, I'll just throw a little flame in the background for you." And we didn't know if that meant blowing up a building or lighting a cigarette. But
And the streets happened to coincidentally be cobblestoned, and they were planning on tarring them over the next day, and we were lucky that they didn't.
Why, is the original one cobblestone?
It's a cobblestone street on Green Street. And
now the interesting story on this chair. This scene was to be shot the first day of the movie, and we showed up and the chair wasn't right. And we actually pushed the beginning of the entire movie to get this chair right. So we hope everybody loves the chair.
It was a very auspicious start.
If you don't, we probably made the wrong decision.
It was a very auspicious start to the shoot.
this is all in Romania.
Aren't those the same chairs that were in the...
This actually looks like my hotel
salt
room.
mines?
Not quite.
Unbeatable.
I think it's interesting when you see all of this come together to realize that it is a combination of shooting in Romania, in London, in New York, in Scotland, in Luxembourg, and that all these pieces have to come together under the brilliance of our editing staff here.
Seamlessly.
Seamlessly.
If you notice, we were in trouble.
That injection in the nose is kind of an homage to Sam Peckinpah.
The Osterman Weekend.
The Austrian Weekend, who killed somebody with a needle in her nose. The writer thought that this was a nice idea.
It's like, wasn't that the opening scene?
It was the opening scene from the Osterman Weekend.
That was one of our styrofoam bricks going up, I believe.
Well, Bob, this whole scene is constructed from bits and pieces.
Yeah, this is all flashbacks.
This is Adrian's hallucination while he's in there. And this is something I think the Highlander films have been begging for, the moment that Christoph and Adrian actually meet.
I know.
And again, this is just a field in the backyard of the studio.
And actually on this DVD, you'll see a couple of different versions of this. You'll see this version. It's slightly different in the early version that you'll see. And then I think we show even
there's a moment where
an
Adrian
extended one in the
up.
deleted scenes.
Adrian stands up and trips and re-impales himself on a sword, and it comes across borderline slapstick. So I think we kept it in one version and didn't keep it in another.
Right, so it was, again, outside of Bucharest and their first meeting. And as you saw in this, as you see in the script and as you'll see in the outtakes, the deleted scenes, that there was more of this, but we felt it didn't work. You be the judge.
Here we see Joe for the first time.
You look like shit. Thanks.
And it was fun mixing the TV characters with the movie characters. Kind of tying the whole Highlander legend becomes such an interwoven thing with the films and with the television, that it was nice to be able to have Joe in this movie.
I know, and all the emails we got, they were really appreciative of seeing them.
And the idea of melding the legend that had been developed over the years from the television series back into the features and making it one. And those two characters were very helpful to accomplish that.
Plus, Joe was building another wing on his house, so he was happy to get the money.
There's blood on it. I didn't say it was easy.
Now, there's the thing with this sword. We had it out of, I believe, the theatrical version, and we got a lot of emails saying something, and we put it back in here on the DVD
had
version.
To get his sword back.
Right.
I don't keep score.
Because we always felt, the sword is kind of like it always comes from the magic pocket. I mean, it's never explained.
Here are the computer screens.
This was a blank screen when we shot it.
So basically the actors are acting to a blank screen.
What's that?
So we had some time to really think through what we were putting on the screen, the numbers of the kills. I know Bill spent a lot of time making sure we got nailed down.
I spent there tossing coins. It was trying to find a balance of what makes a guy, one guy strong, one guy a little stronger, and one guy a lot stronger, but not so over the top that it was.
And it turned out to be a very effective way of demonstrating the strength of Kell versus the strength of these two guys independently, that he had such overwhelming power.
Welcome to your worst
And you bring it into the 2000s with, this is like a Kill Central website.
Well, we sort of like to think that the movie actually takes place in 2002, since really
Something doesn't make sense.
Connor and Duncan were together in 1992 as opposed to 1990.
It's going to be a rough ID. They're all missing their heads.
There's one of your other shots from the original film.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Silver Cup.
This
One
is
more.
a stock shot.
That brings back great memories of.
That's right.
Now you can get a better feel for this abandoned construction site.
Okay,
we
now this
shot
was
in
taken. This
Romania.
was taken out of context. This was part of another scene, which you will see in the deleted scenes. But we liked that little moment there.
We wanted to
for a
establish
transition.
where they were, first of all. Now there's our one real Connecticut shot, and now we're in London.
Is that a real
outside of
Connecticut shot?
England? Oh, they
No, that wasn't
No.
a real
Wasn't it? Didn't they go up and shoot a sign?
No,
Well, I mean, I think
no.
they did shoot a sign.
That was a
didn't they?
real sign.
Now this whole cemetery scene was, I don't know, about an hour and 15 minutes outside of London.
Well, half of the scene was in
Romania.
Romania.
But once we get to, and this was pretty miserable. It was.
Where are you now? You're in Romania? Or London?
Yes.
So the beginning of it's Romania?
This
I
is
can hardly
Romania.
tell myself.
So outside of the cemetery,
good.
you're in
I
Romania.
guess
You
once
go
we
in the
enter-
cemetery, you're in.
You're in both. And then when you step outside of the.
The cemetery
Step outside
scene,
the hall,
the cemetery
it's split.
scene is partly shot in Romania, even within the cemetery, and part shot in London.
Wow.
And that
we were worried about the weather in Romania. It was miserable in London, and it was raining almost through this entire the London portion of it.
But because Bruce got sick, we had to stop shooting and pick up back in London a few weeks later. We were planning on picking it up in Romania, but Romania was now, this scene was now covered in 2 feet of snow, and we couldn't shoot there. So
Now, is
the
this
whole
part
unit.
set? Or is that practical?
That's
practical. And this, I think we all feel is one of the most effective scenes in the
Yeah, it's a
movie.
great scene. I love this scene.
Beautifully written.
I believe this is the only scene where ultimately all of our lead characters are together in one scene, which is why it was such a pivotal moment in the movie.
And it's a fairly extended scene, but holds very, very well.
Now these first lines when Christoph shows up are actually in Gaelic, and we went to a lot of lengths to get it right and be accurate
but
about what
wasn't
they're
it-
saying in Gaelic.
Wasn't it though? Wasn't it done in French and?
It was in French in the script. They said it in French in these shots.
And then
And
removed it.
in Vancouver, we had a Gaelic expert translate the lines we wanted to have, which were a little different. And these two guys learned the Gaelic phonetically. And according to this woman, she said, when I heard them speak, it sounded like my father.
Very good.
They're both very good at that stuff.
I just felt it was a nice little subtle touch that somebody out there might notice and get a kick out of.
And again, this scene shows the closeness of these two, that they are Klansmen, they are brothers, and it is quite touching.
Again, a lot of pumping smoke into these scenes, which is time-consuming in terms of continuity, getting the eyeballing when the smoke is right, when it's not quite right, trying to get a sense that it's going to balance. There's obviously less smoke in this shot. And shooting with smoke is very, very tricky, especially when there's a little breeze.
I couldn't see the slaughter, only heard it and felt it.
I think that's the original heel shot that inspired
Yes.
us to go back and
That's
do
right.
that.
And again, this was
Now, Bruce, our bad guy, came down with terrible bronchitis while we were towards the tail end of shooting in Romania. And we shot, I believe, one day of our cemetery scene before he just became too sick to continue.
In Romania.
In Romania. We picked up again about 3 months later outside of London. And it's hard to tell ourselves exactly what moment it shifted from Romania to London, because it really, the location guys did a great job and it really matches perfectly.
Well, it's such a pivotal scene because of the essence of the movie is revenge and redemption. This is the scene where everybody, the individual characters, discover what's really been going on. I mean, Duncan doesn't know that Connor killed Kel's father. Connor doesn't know that Kel was immortal and has been alive for these last 400 years
And
has
killing
been
all of his
tormenting and
loved
killing
ones.
all of his loved ones. And it's,
friends and lovers are wiped from your sight.
I mean, to us it was a really fantastic Highlander notion, this concept of revenge over time that could never be truly dramatized sufficiently with mere mortals who only can carry on revenge for 40 or 50 years. These guys carry on revenge and hatred for centuries. And hatred is why faith is with Kel.
How was Bruce Payne with sword fighting? Had he had any prior experience?
Bruce had some fencing background and certainly played a role in our selection of them. We wanted people that we didn't have to teach from scratch, that knew how to handle a weapon.
Unlike Carlos.
Carlos he handled the gun good. And this is the Bruce kicks his ass scene.
Honor, guilt. The nagging sense that
And unlike the Sanctuary, this is truly holy ground.
This part of the cemetery is.
But this being the cemetery, once they...
Holy ground, Connor.
He won't do anything to him here. Duncan points it out, this is holy ground, you can't do it. He's tempted.
Now, is it you can't kill on holy ground, or you can't fight on holy ground?
You can't kill on holy ground.
And does anyone know what would happen if you did kill on holy ground?
Bad juju.
Remember this moment later in the film, this is the time he could have actually ended this, and he chooses not to.
But Kel also knows that he's on holy ground. He knows that Connor is, even though he's really ticked off, is still an honorable guy and won't do it. So he gets to taunt him.
You see, throughout the film, we put back in a lot of the images of the past, again, to keep the storyline clear.
afraid you'll lose. That's your true fear.
I love this scene.
I know. It's got a great piece of music in it, too.
This was about a 5-day scene.
Really? Yeah.
A day in Romania, and I think a good 4 in the rain in England.
You love that rain in England, Dan.
That's what
So now,
England's for. A little,
again, is
little
this
drizzle.
a practical cemetery, or are these all fake
We added
photos?
on.
We added, right. So now
That
they're
wall
stepping.
is added.
Now they just stepped out of the cemetery,
Out of
and
holy
now they
ground.
are no longer on holy ground. And now, Bruce is going to humiliate him.
I want you to think back to this moment, Connor!
Bruce is pretty good with that sword.
Bruce could handle it. He's British, and I think he'd been fencing since he was a child.
Did any of them get hurt during this?
We
thing?
got close a couple times.
Yeah, people got their nicked. They got Adrian took a couple of good shots on his hands. So did Christoph.
Adrian had some bloody hands a couple times, I remember.
Ripping apart the ones you care about most!
It's never over, Connor McLeod.
So there he is, well and beaten.
Living is what matters.
A lot of practice went into those fight scenes to get him to look effortless like that.
A lot of editing too.
You and I will be the only
Good
two
editing.
remaining. You will look back on this and know you had one chance to stop me. You failed. But until that day, I will take my vengeance on those.
So evil.
So you don't think that he looks like Marlon Brando, huh?
A little bit, yeah, right there. And that particular angle, he sure does.
And hopefully everyone remembers that came off of Mom's neck. And if you
Okay,
didn't
now if you
remember-
see that now, in reality, the person pulling that off the neck was the henchman,
the hangman.
the hangman. We felt it would be better
And stronger.
and stronger having the priest, Kel, pulling it off.
Is what he said true?
So the hand that goes in there and grabs it is actually the hangman, and pulling it off, we cut away to Kel to make him the one, turning it around, making him the one.
I always like
ripping
this
it
moment because this is where Adrian realizes that his friend of 300 years, 400 years, actually isn't so perfect, and maybe did do something that wasn't so good in the past.
And that was a whole discussion. You know, remember that at one point we thought that he deliberately burned the village, and then we finally ended up editing it.
When one
The
version he
village caught
killed
on
all
fire.
the villagers, and we all felt that he was not a cruel man that would do that. He might have accidentally killed somebody to save his mother, but he was not out to kill innocent
Well, they were burning
people.
his mother. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
someone
he was
burns their
right.
mother,
He's
he's entitled
He's
to.
entitled, absolutely entitled.
He's a good guy.
He's absolutely
You know,
entitled.
you can't burn someone's mother and.
And this was
think you're gonna get away
streamside
with
in
it.
Romania. We were trying to do what we called a Dublin Roadhouse.
So this is a
This is
set.
Romania, yeah.
It's still Romania.
There you go, the barley.
Till the day we are reborn.
Is this an actual ceremony?
Yes, this is pretty much based on, if not an entirely accurate legend, bits and pieces of real stuff.
We actually had an Irish dance choreographer involved in the scene who turned out to be the best dry cleaner in Bucharest.
You guys spared no expense.
Anything to get a deal.
And we did get a deal on cleaning. Now this I call the Christoph in the oversized hat scene.
That's exactly the correct size hat that they used to wear.
Can only be triggered by the sock.
That's why they don't wear those hats anymore.
Or so wardrobe assured us.
And this is actually a very pretty spot.
It is.
Yes, I know, Connor. Is that what you came to tell me on my wedding day? Come on, drink up, man.
And it's again a very strong scene because they're talking about
Ethical
the experience, ethical issues, the experience that Connor had with Heather, and the experience that Duncan has a choice about.
Many years after I was married.
These are, again, not issues that mortals get to deal with. You don't get to choose whether you grow old and die, and you certainly don't get to choose whether somebody else becomes immortal.
She said it was the one part of her that would never age. It would forever remain the same as when I first fell in love with her.
It's a little heavy for a wedding, but...
And again, the more of the scenes between these two, again, we felt that was the strength of this movie. These type of emotional
definitely.
moments
Anytime they're
between the two of them. And we tried to emphasize that in the editing process as much as possible.
Choice.
That was a great sound effect in the theater. Shook all the seats. It was great.
Actually, they wussed out a little bit on it. And but
Well, when we
in the
listened to it at
remix,
the mix, it was
we
fantastic.
Yeah, we put it back a little bit in the DVD.
I'd tell her nothing.
Dan, as I recall, by the time I got through this scene, I mean, Dougie said it was like, it was night. We had to stop. You have to stop talking. It's too dark.
My other memory of this scene is Romania is a country full of packs of wild dogs that were running around in the woods here. You couldn't put a piece of food down. Or they weren't vicious dogs, but it was a strange experience.
Romania was indeed a strange experience, Dan.
So back at the wedding, we decided to add a little bit more footage to get a sense of the wedding, the festivities of the, you know. And we thought that worked better.
I think we added a little bit more of a kiss.
Yeah. And this is just another transition, another kind of transition, something we'd never done before. And I thought it worked pretty good.
It's we called the famous fashion show.
Where was this filmed?
This was done in London.
London, yeah.
This
Now,
actually
is this
was...
Faith? Did you put that there, or was it there?
This is in the Millennium Dome in London, and the Faith sign was on the wall. And
You're kidding.
Adrian, on a day off, had gone to look
Wow.
around in there and came back saying, Fate brought me to the Faith sign. We got to shoot it here. And they were very cooperative and let us in there. You'll see a scene at the very end of the movie.
They're the only
We also
people.
shot in there.
Actually, the only people who paid for admission to the Millennium.
I tried to talk to you 1,000
Get to
times.
the point.
I was wrong.
Oh, no.
Were they cooperative in letting you film there? Or?
They were cooperative because the man in charge of the Millennium Dome was dating Christoph's assistant. So, because of that.
And this is, of course, where we find out,
To grow old with the man I love.
you know, the
How about anything that resembles...
so far we don't know
Took it all away from me.
why she's so cranky.
Oh, something else you forgot to tell me.
It's just the you had no right scene.
Goodbye, Duncan.
And
Cal can't give you those things either, so tell me, Kate, why him?
Which is a big question that's brought up in the featurette of what it's like to be an immortal. The pros and cons, the good parts and the pain of being immortal.
Fine. Go home, Faith.
so when Lisa did her ADR lines, her looping, the replacement where there were technical problems with the dialogue, she was in London and we were in Hollywood, and
over phone lines or
over phone lines, satellite, and we were, she was seeing the same picture we were, and we were talking together with her in the studio in London. It was kind of fun.
No, this is our one real on a stage shot, Adrian in the bedroom.
And what is this building?
This is actually London, I believe, but when you
Yes,
see
this
them
is
in the
London.
bedroom,
This is the.
That's the British Museum, I believe. But when we see the interior,
It's actually.
And again, you'll see, I think in the deleted scenes or a different version, there was another scene here.
This is back in Romania. Another set constructed in that same
Inner sets.
unfinished communist palace.
Where the fight scene took place?
Where the fight scene took place.
it's Lisa's lair.
Now this scene I don't believe was in the domestic version.
It was not in the theatrical, no.
And we had it back in the DVD version.
With him. We liked it. It's really.
The extended version had more of a backstory of a relationship between our bad guy and Lisa.
Well, also we had, a little bit more time. Our schedule got pushed up so much that
From the theatrical.
From the theatrical release, that we had the opportunity and had the time to.
She looks so great in this one.
And I think also in this version we were able to add the emotion that might have been missing in the theatrical version.
Doesn't it?
And we were able to add back more of the feeling of the Highlander legend that was missing from the theatrical version.
This is a much better version.
If we do say so ourselves.
Here's everybody in the room.
It is. Plus the director of photography got to do a little bit more color timing and, it just...
Sound mixers got to tweak it a little bit.
Thank you, DVD.
Close enough.
New York?
This was shot in New York with a Lisa lookalike. That was not really her, which is
Wow.
why you're seeing her from the back. Here's back to the scene that I was referring to as the only one we really shot on a stage in Romania. It was a fully designed set.
Now, is the reason that you did this because it was a love scene, or?
It was one that we couldn't find a practical area. We had a little bit more control where we needed it We wanted to be able to do a legitimately closed set because the actors wanted some privacy doing this one.
It turned out to be a hot scene.
People may or may not realize this is running backwards and the rain is actually flowing up.
We wanted to give it kind of an odd effect. We just ran it backwards.
Right, it's a recollection, a dream. And both of these sets were built on the same stage. The bedroom in the past and the bedroom in the present were next to each other.
I remember wasn't there a pan shot that went from one bedroom to the other.
And my favorite story here is we had all these candles, and I actually caught on fire during the shooting of this, and my fleece jacket melted onto me because everywhere I turned, I was backing into a candle.
Were there any practical lights, or was it all done candlelight?
They were practical, but it was very dimly lit. If you notice, those are fake windows, and there was actually a man pouring water down them from the outside to create the rain effect.
Dougie did a beautiful job on this. He lit it beautifully.
And that was a fake New York backdrop?
The pictures you see through the windows are actually photographs of New York.
The New York is real. The Adrian's tush, however, has been
digitally enhanced. We removed his tail. It worked well. And now we're back 400 years.
Was that made for, or did someone just find that little prop?
No, that was made.
Well, there was a lot of debate on this scene of how graphic you wanted to get with the stabbing of the love. And
because we have stuff that's even more gore, more graphic.
And you don't actually see the moment of impact. You see it in the aftermath, but we didn't want to take it to a level that we didn't want it to go towards.
Yeah, I think I saw this scene out of context. And I wasn't that well versed in the Highlander lore. So when I saw him stab her, it just totally freaked me out.
It was
not much of a honeymoon.
We tried a few different ways.
Very short-lived.
I all thought maybe you should have waited till night 2.
But the concept of somebody having within them the seed of immortality, and you getting to choose.
And how do you feel that? I mean, is it just a feeling?
It's
vibration.
It's like if they sense immortals who have become immortals. This is just a lighter sense. It's a much lighter sense, and it takes a more mature immortal to sense it, which is why Duncan wasn't quite exactly sure about her, where Connor was.
When you're an immortal and you sense someone has a seed of immortal, is it standard that you turn them into an immortal, or is it random, or?
No, that's the choice. That's the great choice, to let them live a normal life, have children, have a perfectly normal life, unless they come to a violent death or decide that you want them with you forever.
And in this case, they might not appreciate having that choice made for them.
She's been teed off at this guy for hundreds of years.
Well, this
since
is
1715.
The undressed Sofitel Hotel, which was where we stayed on our first scout on our trip to Romania.
So this is Romania?
This is Romania. Now the next scene, when we're up on the roof of this building, we will be in England.
I might be forgiven. It may take years. Centuries even. But at least I can carry that hope inside me. That's one blessing of immortality. There's always tomorrow. Even for us.
She has a good look there.
She's a beautiful woman.
Here you begin to get a little bit more of the feel of the half-finished buildings here. Let's see if we see it again. On the pillar there, you could actually see one of our propane tubes.
Also, yeah, you see some flame there. This was a scene, the jousting scene was going on behind this, which you will have to look in the deleted scenes to see that. But they took out the jousting part and we just kept the dialogue.
There you see the mud floors, and right there behind her is the propane tubes that go up the columns.
A toast.
This is what we call our Last Supper scene. You'll notice there's quite a bit of glass on the set because we wanted to have interesting things to blow up when the quickening took place. So you'll notice from the window behind Kel to the table to even as you saw from the lower level up, which looks like grill work behind him there, it's all trick glass that's set up for one big explosion.
Nourish my soul.
This is my favorite piece of wardrobe that Bruce is wearing in this scene, which is a gold embroidered jacket that he is still calling to try to get from me.
I was going to say, I thought they had one made in your size, Dan.
I thought you were walking around town regularly with that, Dan.
I've been wearing Adrian's trench coat.
Justice. The giver.
Again, this scene, I think, shows Bruce's strength as a villain.
Baptized in blood. 'Tis the living that matters.
And you'll see in this scene at one point, Donnie Yen here jumps up and is just beheaded by Kel. But there was a scene which you will see in the deleted scenes and in the special effects area where he took his own life and cut his own head off.
Sort of a Harry approach, but we really didn't feel it worked on a creative level.
But it didn't work on a technical level either, you know? It just didn't work.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Again, here we wanted to show him killing his posse, but again, we weren't trying to make a gore fest film, so it's much more of a surrealistic edit than it could have been.
He's getting a sense that something horrible is going on. Much in the same way that he got the sense that when the guys were being killed in the sanctuary.
You know, I didn't even notice it when at the Highwayman scene. Did they notice that she had a seed of immortality there?
Yes, they talk about it in the what we call the dock scene or whatever that is, where
at the
mentioned
wedding
that I kind of got a sense of something. Connor knew it for sure.
Bruce is being dangled from a wire in that past scene that we've erased. Now we're on the rooftop where we're back in London. This
Notice
is actually
what's missing, Dan?
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Now, let's see if any of you noticed. There used to be a red JVC sign in that scene. That, for those of you that are going to
those of you who may think this was a product placement, it was not.
Boy, they did a beautiful job.
It was not, and if you go back and watch the version where it's in, you'll notice that you read the JVC sign in its proper order, and we realized later on that if you had seen it from up high, it should have been backwards, but we didn't do it backwards.
And more importantly, nobody, see, there's the only place.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it in a couple of these shots, but nobody knows how it got there.
Lives, you and I. We've seen.
Or who got paid?
It just appeared as set dressing, or
we added it. It was not there, but it was not.
But nobody
crass commercialism.
Nobody cops to it.
I also see someone who's lost hope.
Boy, they did a beautiful job in getting rid of it.
Life brings hope and pain.
That really stuck in our crew. I must say, I think everyone here was delighted in the DVD version that it is.
Pretty much gone.
This was about the 5th floor
Except
of
for
a
the JVC
parking
people.
garage in London There was a wonderful
Oh, look at
Indian
that.
restaurant at the base of this building that I spent a lot of time in.
Chosen mine.
What are you doing?
Cal's
You
too
could
strong.
almost see it when Christoph walked in front of it. His head grayed a little bit.
Now, what'll be the interesting story in the next couple scenes is we actually, 2 months after shooting in London, went back and shot several
Okay,
shots
here's
in
London,
Luxembourg.
London. We're still in London, 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 Luxembourg.
Just to torment me.
Maybe you can explain how that worked.
This is Luxembourg.
We
We
weren't-
went back to shoot additional dialogue scenes that we wanted.
Well, it was a very important dramatic moment, and we didn't feel like we got it right the first time. So we've very carefully picked shots where the backgrounds were very nondescript or blank, and reshot dialogue lines that cut very nicely into this London sequence.
Well, Bob, you were over there making sure that they did cut.
Yeah. Basically, you just get what you have existing and match the angles, and you can
And
you
the
can
dialogue,
do it pretty much anywhere.
And the dialogue that was added a great
A lot,
deal of
very much,
emotion to
very
the
much.
scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think it worked very well.
Enough, Connor. I won't fight you. I will never fight you. Then you die.
This was a good 3 full nights in London to put this sequence together.
Where'd you find this particular location?
What we wanted was a rooftop that had enough buildings behind it that it could look like New York City. And we felt there was sort of a Jacob Javits Center looking building here that we felt at a glance it really didn't look like London and really did work as New York.
And all this stuff, all the dressing on the roof was done by the production designer.
That's
the air conditioning ducts.
That's interior Luxembourg. That's London, Luxembourg.
Look inside and tell me I'm wrong.
London, and back to Luxembourg. Now, how did you all feel about killing off a character that's
Only killed off in contemporary times.
Oh, that's right. So you
Must
can go
remember
back.
that.
You can come
Must
back with
remember that.
another Highlander.
I mean, we felt bad because Connor McLeod is the cornerstone of the Highlander franchise and of the legend, and his story is still probably for a one event story. His story is probably still the most powerful one and the one that attracted people to this.
Initially.
And so it was very sad to see him go, and I'm very glad that we
You taught me why we live.
pulled it off
You've forgotten all of that.
as well as we did. That he's gone, he's not forgotten. He went out. It was a beautiful death. It was a meaningful death. It had to happen. He wanted it to happen.
But his exact moment of death was not good enough the first time around, and that's the main reason we went back to Luxembourg to reshoot it, because it was such an important moment in the film that we really couldn't settle for something that was 85%. And you're getting real close. This whole sequence was reshot.
How did Christoph feel about his character?
He's mixed about it. I mean, he talks about it. He too says, well, I'm still alive before 2002, so
anytime
I look forward to coming back. But it was, it's a very defining character in his career and in his life. I mean, you play a guy like this, people see you walking down the street, they go, hey, McLeod.
Yeah, Highlander, yeah.
Hey, Highlander.
This is the section that we redid.
And this was
just to-
redone, rewritten and redone.
We knew we had to deliver and didn't quite do it the first time around.
But that's why there's take two, Dan.
That's why it's the movies.
But this was worth going back for.
It's always nice to see it was worth the effort when you put the time to reshoot these things.
Very emotional moment.
Upcoming This is a shot from Highlander
Here's
1.
your third shot.
Where was the second one?
It was the Silver Cup sign.
Oh,
It
right,
was looking down into Glenfinnan, and
Yep,
it was
yep.
that shot. This was a section Bob spent a lot of time on, sort of the retrospective of Christoph's life as a Highlander. We spent a lot of time.
That's the fourth one, Dan.
Yeah, like Stephen Craig, there is 4.
We had a lot of versions of that too, at different lengths. And we have a whole section in the back. Oh, there's the JVC sign in the background. I just saw it, bleeding through. There it is again. Ow.
I don't know if we'd point that out.
Boy, they did a good job.
One more night.
And again, all these special effects are.
Yeah, this whole
explained
sequence is dissected pretty good in the special
effects sequence, in the supplementary material on the DVD.
This was a scene that Adrian had enormous passion for.
The kata.
That we all agreed we wanted in the movie. It was, you get down to the end of the movie and the movie becomes a one-day movie. And we all agreed with him, and everybody tried their very best to find a time to do this. And
actually, he and Vernon came over to the
way this was shot is
the cutting room.
At lunch every day they would go, and we wouldn't give them any lights, so everything you're seeing in this shot is natural light. The whole crew was eating lunch, and the director and Adrian went out and shot this themselves. And the dramatic lighting really just worked because it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon and the sun was in the right place.
Well, also Adrian and Vernon
also shot this in Los Angeles on his own little DV camera.
Right, with Vernon.
With Vernon. It was
in
also,
one afternoon.
It was also a good version.
Yeah, we tried to get it in the movie, and we just couldn't work it in there.
And now we're in a power station a couple hours outside of London. We wanted a big industrial.
Actually, we're not in a power station here.
Well, we're getting to the power station.
We're getting to the power station.
Where was this?
This is in England. This is in the museum.
Oh, they let you film in the museum?
Just a little. Those side shots going up the stairs.
Doesn't it? You'll never know, will you?
How long did this fight scene go on for in shooting?
So about the better part of a week, I'd say.
Right? It was at least a week.
Are you gonna hide?
Right. And it deserved more than what it got in the theatrical version.
But there were disagreements about how long the film should be.
I think that Miramax had a view of the length of the movie that we disagreed with. And fortunately, in the DVD version, we were able to give full view to the end sequence in a way that was allowed it to play out in a more emotional fashion.
Now we're in the power station.
This power station was, there were 3 power stations together, 2 of which were always operating, and one was just standby in case one of the other ones should go down. And so that was the one that we were filming at.
We really tried to pay attention to making logic of where you were in this power station. And I don't know, Bob, if you want to touch a little bit. I know you've spent a lot of time working on this.
You'll see in this version there's the chain room, but we didn't have that in our theatrical version. And when he jumped off of this catwalk, we took it all the way to the end of the film.
Wasn't catching the sword an important
well, yeah,
moment?
you'll see. You'll see. Okay, when he jumps off here, he gets like this. Boom, the sword goes up. It goes up like this. He dives off, and they catch the sword.
Whose hand was that, Bob?
That was my hand.
We actually shot that about 6 months after the fight.
In Van Nuys, in an old prop warehouse. It was like 150 degrees in there with no air conditioning.
Editors are always complaining when there's no air conditioning.
But the chain room wasn't in. And when he fell down there, we cut to a latter part of the scene when they're up on the exterior of this power plant.
Well, that was because there was a continuity issue where
where the coat was on, the coat was off.
The coat was on, the coat
It was
was
like
off.
one of those things we either had to live with or you had to put the scene back in.
So we decided
At that point,
put it back
they didn't
in.
want the scene in, so
Here's the
you had
famous
to
chain
you had to live with the continuity error. But now in the DVD land, we get to put this scene back in, and it's an interesting scene.
And we even faked a couple of these shots right here in Luxembourg, where we hung the chains and got some close-ups that we hadn't had the chance.
Okay, this is London, Luxembourg, London, Luxembourg, Luxembourg, London, Luxembourg.
I think the sound guys did a fantastic.
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
Those few days in Luxembourg made
a big difference.
It was our time to catch everything we'd missed.
Let's do this.
But that's not that unusual. I mean, it's a good thing
No, that
to be able
happens
to do that. That happens all
on
the
a
time.
lot of films.
Why, you may ask, were we in Luxembourg? Because that's where Christoph was, and we were told he'd work with us if we went to him. So we packed our bags again and headed back to Europe.
Now,
This was a scene that was also out of the theatrical version, which was put in here, and in the earlier version, which you'll see on the B side of the DVD, there's a longer version of this with dialogue.
It also takes place at a different time of day.
Yeah, it was actually shot in daytime, and I think that was the first time I saw it with the timing for night. It looked great. And where was this?
This is
Power plant?
This is the outside of the power plant.
And again, important pieces of this we reshot in Luxembourg, and we'll see if we can point out some of them.
Valiant effort, Duncan. Too bad. And this is
They're the ones that are out of focus.
You see, when you absorb Connor's spirit, you inherit
There's
his
not
curse.
one shot that's out of focus.
That wasn't intentional.
See if you can pick them. These are hard to tell.
And again, this is a whole sequence coming up here that was shot in London and Luxembourg and after the fact, and which will be explained in full detail.
Well, it was important to us that this worked.
Yeah,
and we wanted to keep working at it until we got it right.
The finale's got to be there.
We'll never bring you redemption. So I'm gonna do it for you.
Of course, the theory here was it took the combined essence of our two hero immortals to finally beat Cal. That was the mindset behind some of the morphing
But how to
tricks
do
we
it
tried.
was the tough part. And we tried morphing. We tried one body going into the body. We tried the spirits going up. We tried everything, and a lot of them didn't work. And
We know you guys are a tough audience, so we tried to get it right. Now the close-ups in this shot are from Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, 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 London.
Impressive. Isn't
Duncan!
You take a beating when you're an immortal.
You think your fate! Yes! Because this game is done!
He does rival the Kurgan.
He's a great bad guy.
He is. He is.
Jacob Cal. Time for redemption.
The game isn't over.
Oh, there's one of our morphs.
There's our morph. We were concerned it was a little too subtle, but we didn't want to make it ridiculous.
And it's green
And
screen.
actually, in the theatrical version, later, after
But we'd
we
already
had a
taken
bigger
out.
morph, we took out.
We already took one out earlier, the standing up morph. We just felt they were just too many.
And again, those were effects that we didn't have a lot of time on and needed more time. And since we didn't have the time to do it, they weren't up to par, so we got the opportunity to take them out in the DVD stage.
Spent a lot of time trying to get that water effect to look right.
Oh, yeah, it was 10 different things. It was a ghost image, it was a swirling thing, it was liquid, it was fire. That's where the morph scene was, right there. There's still a little residual of it left.
New York City is...
And again, this is one of the last...
New York City's a plate.
That's a plate background. That'll all be explained in the supplementary material. And I think we did get the opportunity to trim that shot,
yes,
because the starry sky didn't look that great, and that was one of our last effects that we got in, and we weren't happy with it in the theatrical version. And again, thanks to the DVD, we were able to trim it out. So we didn't linger on the shot that long, so you can notice its flaws.
I think this is the shot we were all least happy with.
And again, this literally came in. You know, you haven't heard from him, but our assistant editor, Ahnd is here.
It came in the day before we started release.
Well, you can't hear him. You can't hear him, but he said it came in the day before we started making release prints of this.
Right. You needed one more pass.
Yeah. A day or two, we would have had it down. But
So we apologize. It's supposed to be Scotland, if you can't tell.
It is Scotland.
It is.
It actually is Scotland.
It's Scotland. It's Glencoe. It's the exact right everything.
And
Oh,
we
it's much
actually
better,
had a
much
crew in
better.
Scotland
Much
waiting
better
for
than the,
days for the weather
theatrical
to
version.
clear.
Yes, it is.
And this is tagged on. This wasn't in our original theatrical version.
This is probably the biggest difference. We had a lot of debates over whether Faith lived or Faith died. And in the theatrical version, she dies, and in this version,
Well, that
she
wasn't so
lives.
much as debate as it was a directive.
Fair
Perhaps
statement.
you'd like to explain that
No,
now.
fair statement. We disagreed with the point of view of the studio. And in the DVD version, we were able to...
They said go for it. Do it your way.
So, we're curious what you fans think. Do you like her alive, or should we have offed her?
And if she were going to die, she would have died in the Kell dinner scene.
Mm-hmm.
But we made that ambiguous so that we could preserve her for this particular ending here.
Or for future Highlanders.
Anything's possible.
So if you guys see the producers at conventions, tell them whether you want Faith to be in the next film.
Well, I hope they do more Highlander movies. I wasn't a fan prior to working on it, but certainly became a fan and loved the enthusiasm of the Highlander fan base. It was great hearing from them and seeing how dedicated they were.
And their feedback...
They're the best.
Their feedback was immeasurably helpful in what our end work product was.
A lot of some of the suggestions we got from the feedback after the theatrical version from all the emails.
They found their way into this version.
Yes, they did.
There are no greater fans than the Highlander fans. Bar none.
You hold on to it for me. We've got plenty of time.
You are going to see a B-side of this.
It's an earlier cut. We're always interested in hearing what you have to think. Get on the web. One of the great things about DVD is that we can offer you an opportunity to see an early cut of Highlander Endgame. Came straight out of our Avid workstation. Film is in a raw state here with temporary sound mix, incomplete visual effects, no color corrections to the picture, different music, fact, the story itself is still in an early incarnation and is different in many respects from what we finally finished up with. I'm Bill Panzer, and I hope you enjoy it. And don't forget to look for those Easter eggs.